Hi guys, it's Debbie and this is the second episode of my Italy versus America series. I lived in Italy nearly my entire life and I've been in the United States for around 8 or 9 months now. Recently I've been creating these videos in which I compare different aspects of daily life. I explain how they are back at home and how they are here. Last time I spoke about food, today it is driving, cars, getting around in general. I used to drive a lot back in Italy. I used to own my own 1997 Fiat 500 which I paid €200 and which I miss dearly. Here I have obtained an American driver's license and I drive a very new, very posh, definitely not mine, BMW. Now the first difference that I can immediately point out between Italy and America when it comes to driving is that in the United States everything is bigger. The roads are wider, even in the small cities, the motorways are huge and so are the cars. You will hardly ever see small city cars. Most people drive SUVs, large pickup trucks, and in general, longer, larger cars. I think this difference is for two reasons. First of all, in America, fuel is cheap. Way cheaper than Italy. Number two, I think it is a fashion adopted over the years, probably from when people had to travel long distances. The United States cover a very large area and people would prefer big, sturdy, reliable vehicles. In Italy and in Europe in general, there is simply not the space for things of this size. The streets are tiny, winding with cobblestones, there is a lot of traffic, fuel is expensive, you often have to make tight turns, you will have to squeeze park into very small slots, so most people choose small city cars. Fiats, minis, smart cars, or better yet still, motorbikes. Wherever you go in Italy, you will see swarms of scooters everywhere. If you have a larger car, it's usually for a reason. Generally because you have a large family, you make long trips, you need to take your personal belongings, or you live in more rural areas which are easily accessible with a certain type of vehicle. But in everyday situation, the larger the car, the harder it is to get around. For example, my parents have an old, huge minivan, but that's because we are 4 siblings, we have a cat, we have a dog, we always have friends or relatives over. My parents drive to all their holiday destinations, taking bikes and whatever they can fit in the back of the car. But in everyday situations, when I used to own the Fiat 500, they would borrow it whenever they could because parking with it, going and moving around with it was way easier. In the United States, even if you are a single parent going grocery shopping for your only child, using a large car is something very common. Another difference I would like to point out is based on the actual process of starting to drive. In Italy, because of all the above mentioned reasons, you don't only just need to know how to drive, but you also need to be very streetwise, very conscious of your surroundings. You don't only need to know the basics, but you need to have pretty good driving skills. You need to feel confident in the car. You'll have scooters whizzing past you, ongoing roadworks, road signs with bullets through them. Some towns in the south of Italy have never even seen a traffic light. The old roads follow tracks which date back to the Roman Empire. It's not a joke. So in certain points, visibility can be reduced. Architects couldn't simply move a part of history. In America, even if you're lost in the middle of nowhere, there will still be signs everywhere clearly indicating directions. There will be freshly painted lines on the ground, well-functioning and well-maintained traffic lights, and even if there are roadworks, a police officer will be patrolling the area. So when as a teenager you start driving in Italy, you don't only need to know the basics, but you have to acquire a tough skin and learn how to move around in that environment. There are many unwritten rules, you have to be very swift, any dithering would just make the situation worse. And I think this is why it's so hard to obtain a driver's license in Italy. The testing process is very tough. Most of the people I know have failed their road test, me too, twice. The instructors are very strict. They will fail you for small details. They will try to distract you. The driving part can even be over 30 minutes long. And the car is not yours. It's a random car which you were assigned on the day of your test, even if you've never driven it before. In the United States, I've heard of people being tested for 10 minutes in an empty parking lot with traffic cones and spray lines on the ground. People are tested in their own personal cars, which they brought from home, which they have been driving all the time, they've been practicing in, and which all have automatic shift. Driving in manual shift, as we do in Europe, is not hard once you learn how to do it. But basically, if you're not doing all your footwork correctly, and this happens a lot as a learner, the car engine will die over and over and over again. If you're uphill, your car won't happily just sit where it is. It will start sliding backwards. You will have to stop it from crashing into everybody behind you with swift foot movements coordinated with your hands on the stick, while your instructor reminds you of how much a failure you are to society. And even if you reach this test, it's because you paid hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of euros and you queued up for many hours on numerous days in the DMV. So by the time a teenager finally gets his or her hands on a driver's license, trust me, they're pretty street confident. So there are pros and cons on both sides of the ocean. On the one hand, in Italy, driving can be very stressful. It can be very intimidating because the environment is not exactly user-friendly. But at the same time, most people are just used to this and easily navigate through anything that occurs. People just seem to drive in a coordinated chaos. In the United States, everything streetwise is very neat. And essentially, if you don't do anything foolish like speeding or not paying attention, driving is very easy. The negative aspect is that I often see people overestimating the control they have over their vehicle. The roads are very wide, well indicated. You need one foot to drive and your hands don't need to do anything if not hold the steering wheel. So people will just whiz through the streets, eating, drinking, texting in all kinds of positions. It's as if they're driving toy cars, but which are 4 tons of metal and raw power. Also in the United States, I've noticed that if there is a slight disturbance on the road, such as an accident, roadworks, or even just bad traffic, people don't seem to immediately adjust their driving to this. What I mean is that often in those situations, I will do things such as slightly inch forwards, slightly move to the side, do something slightly out of the ordinary to aid everybody around me, to aid the traffic. But whenever it happens, people will start honking like crazy. They'll start swearing at me, shaking their heads, when in reality I just helped them. I think they feel the need to maintain that neat attitude on the road. And this is why I never understood why people speak of New York as a crazy place to drive in. I've personally never driven in New York, but I've been there countless times. If it weren't for the tourists invading the streets, everything is clearly indicated. There are signs everywhere for everything. The roads are super wide, there are traffic lights at every corner. I mean, if you try to drive in a big city like Rome, or anywhere really, you need to know what you're doing. You need to use your common sense. You will not have 5 signs warning you that is the lane only for right turn. This is the only left turn lane, with 7 traffic lights behind that. Speaking of transportation in general, I feel that Italians have to heavily rely on their cars as the best means of transport on the contrary of Americans, because of the situation of the public transportation system. In Italy, on a daily basis, many people use buses, trains, the underground to get to school, to work, but they are not considered the most reliable means of transport. This meaning that if you absolutely have to be in a place at a specific time, you can't just trust the last bus, which is advertised as getting you there on time. You will have to take an earlier one to make sure you will be there on time. When trains are cancelled, too bad for you. There won't be a helpful guy in a reflective yellow suit taking you to the free replacement shuttle bus which will take you straight to your destination. You're just stuck with a non-refundable €25 train ticket. In the south, a bus stop is just a random corner on a random mall in front of which you stand and cross your fingers. Obviously in the big cities like Rome or Milan, the service is very efficient, it's 24/7. I've even done 24-hour straight journeys from the top of Italy to the south of Italy, changing 3 buses and 1 ship, and everything was spot on time. But for everyday things, people do rely on their cars, also because Uber doesn't exist. So you will need an alternative solution if you're doing anything outside the reach of public transportation. In the United States, instead, people can rely on the train system, on the bus system. Customers are quickly and clearly updated on any delays. There are always alternative options, and you never really have that fear of, will my train actually turn up today? I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I managed to give you some insight into my life back in Italy. And just as with the video about food, as you guys are from different parts of the world, I would love to hear your experiences. So feel free to leave a comment down below. If you'd like to see more content, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.